Namaskar. Welcome to PGurus Prime Time. I'm your host Sri Iyer. I am with Jitendra Ojha, and a shout out to all our viewers who are joining. Please like, share, or retweet this broadcast because as soon as the broadcast starts, if you like or share it, it helps spread the message faster because it makes the YouTube and Facebook engines think that there is good traction. So this is something that we would like you to do because we would like to have more people watch our videos. So thanks once again. Thanks in advance. So our guest of the day is Jitendra Ojha ji. He needs no introduction. And he has been in the news for all the wrong reasons recently. His name has been in Pegasus. So it's his wife's name. We don't know if it got tapped or not. But we do know that he is somebody who is taken very, very seriously in some circles. Jitendra ji, today's topic is national security, subversion, and how it becomes a covert war. Where are things, when someone says national security, what are they saying? What are the implications? What are the things that the word national security encompass?
Shriji, thank you once again for Namaskar and thank you for having me on your show. It has always been a delight. Common people, when they talk about national security, they usually refer to national security as war or something like this, or anything which has to do with police and other agencies or paramilitary forces. But when, some specialists or strategists and others, they talk about national security, they have a different meaning, I would suppose. There are two dimensions of national security, Shriji. One dimension, I would say, is certainly, national empowerment or comprehensive national power, the word Western securocrats have been mentioning. How, as a country, how, as a state, how, as a society, you optimize your potentials entirely. You come to a level where you can handle both real and potential threats at minimal cost in a manner that does not interfere with, does not impact, the process of growth, process of normal evolution of individual, society, state, everyone. So I would suppose, and the second aspect is that I would say, whatever is conflict, domestic or external, you are in a position to manage these conflicts without compromising your long-term goals, objectives, etc. But this national security over the years, it has come to encompass far too many dimensions, right from environment security, climate peace, to food security, to anything that has a potential to, I would say, impact long-term growth of a state and society or general security of individuals. Even values, even identity, all these are part of national security, Shriji. So national security is an extremely broad subject. Yes, military conflicts or territorial security or military security is a very critical component. That people also talk about political stability. That is the most important aspect. If political stability is not there, then everything can go for a six. So it's a very broad concept. Though Westerners have been trying to say, they started talking about this concept, they said it is not sufficient that you wage war or win war, but you should be in a position to sustain war. But Shriji, the world has been changing so fast. Today, you do not need war to, I would say, decapacitate a society or state. Cyber attack in virtual world is good enough an attack. Even Pegasus or something like this can virtually paralyze a society if it goes to a different level. But leave aside Pegasus, I would also say that trade and technology in today's world, they have become lethal tools of predation. Similarly, we all are talking about, data war, etc. But so what I'm trying to say, national security covers virtually everything that impacts lives of individual in short run and long run. So I think it's a very broad subject. When you're talking about subversion, subversion is somewhere, where capacity of institutions of a state or society, or I would say even values of people are impacted in such a way that can erode security of that state or erode security of that society. So subversion is a very huge subject. There has been a lot of discussion, but it has not been sufficient discussion. And I feel it is extremely important that democracies in general, and India in particular, we talk about this subject because at times subversion can have far more crippling impact on open society especially than even an act of war. Subversion, I would say that it is something which can cripple key points of a society, key areas of this thing, or cripple the heart of a society, and you don't get to know, and suddenly the whole thing can collapse. So subversion is that dangerous. So I'm very happy that you are organizing a discussion on this subject, Sriji.
And before we proceed further, I just wanted to give a shout out to all our followers. Please like our channel. Please like our programs. You know that we are like the tip of the spear. We bring programs that mainstream media becomes aware of days, sometimes even weeks later. So we are doing our work. We are doing our research. Our subject matter experts are the best in the business. And we're doing all this so that we can make your time spent on our channel worth your while. So can I make a small request? Please do like our programs, like our channel, subscribe to our channel if you have not already done so. Click on the join button. And if you happen to be watching this on Facebook, do share this, because sharing makes it much more, have a better potential to go viral. We want this is an educational seminar. It is not castigating anyone. It is not taking any sides. It is just showing, educating people what exactly is the meaning of national security, because subversion is something that perhaps people don't understand. Even national security, like Jitendra ji explained, we don't know the full meaning and importance of this word. And that's where things are, we are discussing these things. So first off, let's take a real life example, Jitendra ji, before we go on to the next one.
Yes.
About 15 fishermen from Tamil Nadu have been taken into custody by Sri Lankan Navy. Now, before we start outraging that how can Indian nationals be imprisoned by the Sri Lankan Navy, we have to look at the context. Did these people fish in India's waters, or were they in international waters, or were they in Sri Lankan waters? And clearly, the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister jumps up and writes a letter to Jaishankar saying that we must get these people back. Now, what I have heard from the ground situation is that India has completely depleted itself of all fish along its shores, because they used to do what is called as mechanized boat fishing. And these things are trawlers that can suck up thousands of fish in one shot. And DMK and ADMK leaders have these trawlers, and they have completely sucked up. And it will take years before the ecosystem gets reformed. So what happens is the day-to-day fishermen have a problem because they don't get paid anymore. They cannot compete with these. So they don't have these small boats that we used to, sailboats that people used to go and fish. Now what they have to do is they have to rent some of these mechanized things. And then because there is no more fish on India shores, they go and fish in Sri Lanka shores, and Sri Lanka has a right to defend its shores. But because these vital details are left out, you will start seeing a huge uproar in Tamil Nadu. These kind of fake narratives also disturb and distract people from really knowing what the truth is. What usually happens in such cases? Because you're kind of familiar with this stuff.
Yes. You have pointed out absolutely rightly, Shriji, though we are deviating a little bit from our topic. This water boundary between India and Sri Lanka, or these territorial waters, these are in such a way that it is very difficult to, demarcate, because the distance between India and Sri Lanka, even in sea, is far too less. And what you have said, that all fish on our area, in our territorial waters, have been depleted. And there is some perception that even Kachativi Island, which was given to Sri Lanka, our fishermen from Tamil Nadu, they have been complaining about it. Mechanized boats that you are talking about, that they have been going, not now, but last 10, 15, 20 years, I would say, because of trouble in Sri Lanka. There's still a lot of fish and marine resources in Sri Lanka's territorial water. These are far too much. So our fishermen have been going and, of course, doing this thing, they're fishing in their waters. They feel that, no, as per some previous this was part of this thing. They have been traditionally going there. like Kachatavu Island, they say that they've been spreading their net. So, this boundary, all said and done, is a problem that, these are recent this thing, and fishermen are on our side are not willing to accept. And many fishermen have become, very powerful politicians, owning these trawlers, etc. And Sri Lankan Navy sometimes captures these trawlers as well. They feel that, that these trawlers destroy, not only suck up fish, but also destroy, coral reef and other resources in that area. So, it's a very contentious issue. I think a lot of education is required, and amicably this issue has to be resolved. Maybe fishermen have to be trained to go a little deeper in the sea, not on Sri Lankan side, but somewhere else. So it's a complicated thing, but giving it a national character or making it a national sentiment certainly it amounts to bringing pressure on you, unnecessary pressure on your government. We do have issues with Sri Lanka because Sri Lankan territory or its waters are being used by third countries with designs that could be hostile towards us. So these are issues we need to focus, and we have to, manage these things. And this is what I feel, that in our democracy, very often these pressure groups manage to put pressure on government, manage to impact policies, manage to impact perception, and this, I think, is avoidable. This must be avoided. But I suppose these are vulnerabilities. This is what I would say, vulnerabilities of open societies and democratic societies. Sometimes wrong kind of pressure, undue pressure can be exerted for purely political purposes, Shriji.
And I deliberately picked Sri Lanka and this particular issue because my next question is also a follow-up. National security, I'm looking at it slightly differently. Again, like you said, many people look at it in many different ways. What has happened, and I don't know if you probably know this. China has officially signed an agreement to build an artificial island off of Colombo. And this island is being planned to be an autonomous region, not under the jurisdiction of Sri Lanka. Even though it is part of Sri Lanka, they are saying that it will provide employment to the people of Sri Lanka. But if there is any challenge, that will be tried not in a Sri Lankan court, but in a company's tribunal or something like that. The employees will be paid in Chinese currency. See, you mentioned that, subversion, these kinds of things are now becoming more and more a gray area. So what I am seeing here is China is establishing a listening post hardly 20 kilometers from the coast of India. By doing this, and they can do whatever they want because Sri Lanka is not going to be able to restrain them or constrain them. And this sort of stuff makes it that much more important that the people living in the southern part of India, especially near the coast, be completely understanding and aware of what are the national security implications when you have an enemy country established so close to you. So my question to you, sir, I'm sorry, sometimes I kind of ramble on defining the problem, because it has to be, anything that we talk about has to have a real life example so people can apply that, right?
Absolutely.
So in such a situation, what are the things that people living along the coast must be aware of? Should they be, what are the things that they should be thinking, looking about? And more importantly, how educated do you think people are along the coast about, security, awareness, and so on and so forth?
I think, Shriji, this problem has to be viewed, or this issue has to be viewed in totality. People have a role, no doubt about it, and awareness helps. But then I would say when we devise national security strategy, it has to be devised in a manner that it goes on an automatic, even when people are involved. So this is why we are talking about Indocracy, that, minor cosmetic changes here and there is not going to matter. Geopolitics or security matters are not about public opinion. Public opinion does have a role. But you take the case of China. China has started a very new kind of imperialism, very subtle imperialism. Imperialists also did this thing. British and other imperialists also did. They did a lot more. They applied a lot more force and deception and treachery. China is also doing it virtually anywhere and everywhere. What it is doing, it is trying to buy up political leadership in some of these, I would say, not so established democracies in this region. It is also able to have not influence to this extent, but a very high level of influence even in smaller countries of Europe. But here it has a free hand because this is backyard of India. And on one of the TV discussions, when I said, there is no ready-made template to resolve problems like this, Indians have to think as Indians. Our problems are unique. So we can't borrow, British model or American model or Japanese model. This kind of neighborhood does not exist anywhere. So we have to be innovative enough to guard against Chinese subversion of these smaller states and creation of this kind of thing. Because of financial reason or whatever reason, we don't know. But, last many years, I would say 15, 20 years or so, 16 years, Chinese have been assiduously cultivating government in Sri Lanka, and particularly few families, few this thing. And I don't want to get into those details. A lot of things are there on social media. A lot of things are there which are being talked of in diplomatic community or strategic community also. But somehow India has not been able to resolve this thing. And one of the primary reasons, Shriji, we have not been able to resolve because of expanding asymmetry of all-round power. China is using subversion as a legitimate tool, or rather as a normal tool, to acquire foothold everywhere, create outposts of its security. And it is creating outposts of its security everywhere in in this region, and it is able to succeed because governments or politicians or whosoever, they have some compulsion, their financial prowess, their technological capacity or such that these countries or these leaders see a short-term benefit. And in the process of this short-term benefit, they are bartering their long-term interest. And all said and done, diplomacy, one vote, everything is fine, Shriji. But ultimately, world or strategic balance depends on some major powers. And major powers in this region are India and China. But India, because of lack of strategic vision, because of lack of that consciousness on national security, because lack of awareness on issues like subversion, lack of issues like covert war or inability to fight, not awareness, inability to fight these things, we have allowed this asymmetry to expand so much that it is threatening us very badly, Shriji. And I would say that Chinese are subtly subverting this thing. In whole of Africa, they have created, Central Asia, they have created, Far East, they have created, Europe, they have created. And their strategy is such that in long run, they want to dominate and crush everyone else through this kind of deceptive war. Thank you.
So let's take a look at some of the security challenges. I'm going to just ask this one question, which has to do with energy security. India is energy deficient right now, with about 287 megawatt per 1 million population, compares to first world, which is about 2000 megawatt per 1 million population. So we are about 1/8 or 1/9. Now, in order for India to be secure energy wise, it needs to have abundant generators of electricity. So what happens is India plans to have a nuclear energy reactor. But then what happens is that's when subversive elements get in. Like, for example, there was this nuclear reactor in Gudankulam in Tamil Nadu again. Then again, what happened? There was a religious angle given to it. There was an environment angle given to it. Long story short, block after block after block after block. I'm talking about the UP era. Even today, I'm not sure if that nuclear reactor has started or not. So India has only a few ways in which it can generate power. And the easiest thing to do is coal. And coal is a pollutant. So the other thing is to do nuclear. So this subversion has taken very deep root in India, isn't it?
Yes, because there are so many elements within India for a variety of reasons. These elements have become very powerful. Sometimes they may not be aware of their larger implications. And what happens, Shriji, people are driven by their immediate needs, immediate interests at one level. At another level, some people are so powerful that they don't care about anything. They have no commitment, nothing as such. And this has built a momentum. This has built a culture. And in the process, what has happened, that long-term interests of the country goes for a six. And earlier also, we discussed on your channel, some degree of corruption is inbuilt in our system. And in a globalized world, corruption is the vehicle on which subversion travels. I would also differentiate. I'm not like other, I have my own views on a lot of things, and I consider myself an independent strategic thinker. And I believe that there's a minor difference between subversion and covert war. So covert war is the next higher stage. So because of corruption, etc., integrity of institutions is distorted. These are already subverted. And in the process, what happens on the next higher stage, your hostile enemies use subversion to wage a covert war against your country. We become crippled. And our approach, including approach of India's so-called stakeholders, so strategic leaders, they are worried only about themselves. That kind of collective awareness has been missing even amongst the top stakeholders of India, whether in corporate sector, whether in intelligentsia. Some people who are not involved, like us, we keep on talking about it, but there has not been a genuine initiative to address something of this nature. I would say what you mentioned, specific instances, these are problems, these are symptoms. But solution is not that you, for police, through policing and other channels, you just suppress it. The real solution is that you create and destroy the ground for subversion. Of course, you manage at tactical level. I'm not saying that tactical level is not important. You manage it tactically, but we have not been having a strong vision of national security. And whosoever, retired, old, securocrats or diplomats have been talking about, I have been very disappointed to hear their perception. People who are in 70s right now or late 60s, those who are 15 years or 12 years or more older than me, and even otherwise also, there has not been much of a serious study except memorizing information. Even when I have heard lectures on national security, these are all about memorizing information from here, there, and everywhere. And there has been very little contribution based on real appreciation of issues concerning India. So when we talk about blaming those people, some people are hungry, some people are they don't have a roof on their this thing. All they need is somebody has to pay a small amount of money, that okay, you are being paid this money, you go here and create some problem. There is some criminal here, isn't it? He's masquerading as a politician or as an NGO worker. Your criminal justice system cannot detect him. And it puts people on Pegasus surveillance because they have their independent views, or it kills or rather arrest Nambi Narayan, kills so many scientists because that is also subversion, isn't it? By people in high position, people in police and security establishment. So that is there, and it has built a nexus of its own. I entirely appreciate that in our police and criminal justice system and other establishments, there are amazing people. But since corruption has become a way of life in India, this is disaster in long run. This can have very dangerous implications, Shriji, because people, in 93 blast, for example, I was writing a research paper when I was doing an NDC program. So people who smuggled in RDX, they bribed people. And those who accepted bribe, they also claimed that they had no idea that what was being smuggled in. So, when this culture of corruption builds up, you cannot differentiate between what is appropriate and what is inappropriate, what is, minor corruption and what is dangerous corruption, what is, what can be part of covert war. So, we have to look at the whole thing and sanitize the whole space, because our neighborhood is not like America. We don't share something of the nature of Europe. We are, surrounded by two very dangerous and different kind of entities. And both of them are extremely hostile to us. And within the country also, a lot of people have been subverted either in the name of religion or in the name of caste or in the name of some parochial interest or somehow. So the whole thing requires a very different approach, much more robust approach than what America, Japan, or others would be doing it. And on top of all this, we are very lucky that we are a democracy, because we are indifferent this thing. But managing democracy requires far more skills. It's not that we have to dispense with democracy and try to ape China or try to ape a country of rogue countries like, who all are in the league, who have used Pegasus. We should not be in that list of rogues. We are a major power. We are a very old civilization. We have to appreciate that. And we have to behave, act in that way and devise, or rather find solution to the challenges that we are facing. And the biggest challenge, as you pointed it out, these are tip of an iceberg. There are much bigger stories, much bigger cases. Nambi Narayan case, on which, people are talking about. This is again tip of an iceberg. You see, so many scientists have been knocked out. So many other people, so many things have happened. And we have still not develop sufficient awareness, consciousness, or build sufficient resolve to fight a problem of this nature, Shriji?
Well, I want to give you an example, and I want your opinion on whether that is subversion that has led to covert war. There's a small town called Thoothukudi along the coast of Tamil Nadu. They had a copper smelting plant. It's called Sterlite Copper. And there were reports, there was a consistent approach.
I need 30 seconds break, Shriji.
Yeah,
I need
yeah.
30 seconds break.
Go ahead,
You
go
can
ahead.
continue this thing. I keep listening to you.
Yeah. So I just want to state the problem to you, citing environmental concerns that this plant was polluting. There were a lot of agitations, and in one agitation where the agitation turned violent, there was police firing and some lives were lost. And that became an uproar. The whole state went up in arms without understanding the implications, and the plant was closed. So what happened after that? India used to be able to satisfy all its copper needs from this plant and perhaps a little bit more. So they were able to do an export of copper. Whereas because this has now stopped completely, India has become an importer of copper. And who was the beneficiary in this particular case? It was Pakistan and China. So you have a situation now where you, citing environment concerns from NGOs, you've done all this stuff, and the local government is too stupid. That's the only word I can use. Because whether it is ADMK or DMK, they don't understand the international ramifications. Then why are these people in positions of power? Can we draw a minimum line saying that you need to have so much cognitive intelligence in order to become a chief minister? And they also have a loudmouth who rattles off, who's supposed to be an NRI, giving bad name to all us NRIs, who rattles off. So my point here is, people are totally, I can't say idiotic, but ignorant of what are the ground realities. Would this be a covert war on part of China? Because they can easily fund some people, just go and create noise. India is like a big behemoth, slow response. By the time it does that, the war is lost.
We have mentioned, in first lecture on your channel, Shriji, I said we are suffering from strategic myopia, not now, but as a civilization. And that is why, from being a civilization that would have been 100 times bigger than China at some point of time, we are shrinking, and we are doing it because we can't agree on something of this nature. So what you're saying is very valid. This particular incident is very valid. I would say, earlier also I said, at a tactical level, certainly this has to be addressed. But since we are a democracy, we cannot work on discretion, mercy of someone else. Why India is democracy, our core this thing, or Indocracy, or whatever you can say, pre-Islamic governance we are talking about, where it is not an individual on whose discretion society should depend. We are talking about building institutions with commensurate capacities, structures, processes also, where the best decisions comes automatically. So here, you are right that yes, chief ministers, etc., they did not listen. But where is our bureaucracy? Where is their integrity? Where is their accountability? Where is their autonomy? We have come to a situation that whether some scientist also says something or bureaucrat also says something, the person is brushed aside. And politicians and sections of bureaucracy, section of police, section of media, section of corporates, they have all created an excess. And their whole objective is what? To remain in power. So this is why, Shri, by saying that by minor changes here and there, by bringing in some qualification, we are not going to be able to solve this problem. What you're mentioning, these are small, stray incidents. But there are much larger cases where, the whole capacity of India as a state and civilization is being trampled upon. I feel there is absolutely no reason that a country of our size, 40 or 50 years, we have lagged so far behind compared to China. Such kind of power asymmetry, it must never have happened. China is pursuing limited competition. In our country, competition has been entirely rigged, Shri. So that is why, it hurts, it impacts us so badly when we hear something of this nature. But I think we have to go for a holistic transition or transformation of, entire governance apparatus, where, discretion or mercy of a political boss becomes irrelevant. Whether you are a chief minister, or whether you are a chaprasi, or whether you are a jhaduwala, or whether you are anyone, everyone is accountable. And not that we do it through force of law or by coercion or threats. We create a system where these things are inbuilt, and that is what Indocracy is all about, Sri, which is again facing resistance, very sadly, from people who are hiding within the echelons of a nationalist government.
And now there are some specific instances where you could look at it and say, well, this could be a problem because of the political system that we have in India. Because all these things that we talked about are because of the political system. I'll give you another example, very strange. Some of the communist leaders of the country, Sitaram Kesri, D. Raja, the D is either Daniel or Doraisamy. He will change the name as per convenience. When I challenged his wife, she said, this is personal, don't bring it into public domain. A person whose life is in public domain, the wife cannot answer what the D stands for. Anyway, that is a story that, I got her on NewsX once. And the host was very kind enough to not allow me to continue that process. He said, no, Shri, you shouldn't ask this. Anyway, so we have all sorts of situations like this. The point here is, you have two citizens of India who are appreciating what an enemy. Today, China is an enemy of India. Which side of the bed do they get up in the morning, sir?
Leave aside that. In 1962, I'm told Nambudri Pad and Jyoti Basu, they said that brother China has come to liberate us in 1962 during war. So I would say that instead of moral indignation, what is people who are managing Pegasus, where are they? What are they doing? Isn't it? Instead of, getting after these things, they should have got after them and, established whatever linkages they are having, and whatever benefits they are getting, establish it, and then go through a judicial process. Our judicial institutions are also intimidated, or sometimes there's massive miscarriage of justice unless and until something happens. So this is what I'm saying, Shri, that, because of slavery, this psyche has come up that you don't respect yourself, you don't have self-esteem as such. That is missing. Some people will be dissident in any society anyhow, and some degree of dissidence should not be crushed, should not be done. It should be allowed, as long as, whatever it is. I don't believe, people, even if saying things on Facebook here and there, or otherwise articulating their opinion, even criticizing government is perfectly all right. But wherever people in our political domain, if they are financially benefiting, and return for that financial benefit, they are saying something that must be met with a resounding, I would say a resounding, not physical slap, resounding slap on all these elements to bring sanity in their heads. And not only just through words, they should go to permanently jail. You come out and fight, not through clandestine, snooping on your own people. Even if you snoop, get something, come out with a legislation or something like this, and your legislative and judicial processes should be such that punishment is instant. But this is how we are saying, they are one or two people. There are hundreds of people in our political establishment, in our police establishment, in our various establishments. They have access to, this is why I said organized crime. They have access to huge amount of funds. Many times the money which was being printed. So with all this thing, the ability of Indian state gets eroded. Indian state is not able to respond in the way it should respond, Shri. And you are just citing one or two instances, but I think number of these people is very high, whether they're arms dealers or something. I mentioned on your show itself, how is it that, we have not been able to build indigenous defense manufacturing capacity? Because, these defense dealers with trucks here and there, they felt it was far more rewarding to get these deals, and there were others who were supporting them. So we have been kind of the biggest fertile ground and the biggest land where subversion has been allowed, encouraged. You take the case of Punjab, where average height of men used to be 6 feet or so, or even taller. Our girls were so strong that Punjab is reeling under drug and narcotic abuse. Is it possible? My friends in police establishment only say, There is absolutely no way, without connivance of some practical, smart police officer or pragmatic police officer who are equally popular with all this thing and some of their political this thing, without their connivance, it's impossible for Pak-sponsored drug trade or narco trade to flourish on land of Punjab. And what is the net consequence? We used to tell, Punjab is heart of India. Even now, you see in COVID crisis, large number of people from our Punjab or Sikh community, how they've responded. But there's a very conscious design has been there to do what? To push people in a situation where they are addicted to drug and narcotics and things like that. And there are local collaborators are Indians only, here only. So what I'm trying to say, there are multiple ways that we are being attacked. This is why, somehow you feel sad that are our institutions, are our stakeholders, are our leaders, are they so helpless that they allow this kind of subversion to go on at any level? And they only talk about it. You should not speak about it. There has to be a bipartisan discussion on this thing, an institution of credible mechanism of rule of law, where nobody can question a process once it is put in place. If there is impartiality, if there is autonomy, if there is accountability, if things are in order, whatever you do, nothing is going to be questioned, Sri. But what has happened, not now, last 50 years or so, institutions in India have been increasingly rigged, and we have become once again a state where our name may be Hindu, our identity may be Hindu, but our outlook, the way of governance is more Islamist, where we depend on mercy, discretion, whim of people in position of authority. That is not Hindu dharma or a governance based on dharma that I learned from first esteemed teacher of my life, Vishnu Kant Shastri, who used to explain to me what dharma is. Dharma is not about going to temple. Sorry, I've gone to this thing, but it saddens that subversion has been bleeding India. You are citing one or two instances. Instances are galore, and sometimes instances are not there. What has prevented us, Sri, from taking cognizance of a problem like this, addressing it for the sake of national security? Why can't so-called our stakeholders come together? And, we will discuss it a little more. Even if you're not asking, on your show I had said, if 90%, 95% of India's elite have something to hide, their moral authority, their courage is already mortgaged somewhere else. Whatever it is. Earlier also I said, that when you negotiate with, aircraft hijackers, you try and see that the hijackers go home and you secure this thing. So similarly, in certain position, you have to come out with a formula. You have to come out with this thing. Okay, you will be allowed to go only to save your life. You will not be allowed to scoot with booty that you have looted from India. That will be brought back. But at the same time, long-term strict remedial measures are needed. Otherwise, our existence as a civilization is under severe threat. India and Indo-Asia and everything that we are talking about, subversion is one thing that has already harmed us so much. It can completely annihilate us, Sri. This is what I would say.
Now, I have a slightly different take on this, and I'm going to run that by you, Jitendra ji. See, as a population, India have done the right thing. They gave the Narendra Modi government a clear verdict. 303 seat majority now, 282 in 2014. In other words, they recognized that these small parties were the ones who were derailing a more national-minded party from getting things done. So they said, okay, this is the best national party in existence today. We will give them the mandate. Although some states don't think so. And they need their heads examined. They need to understand where their priorities are. But that's a debate for a different day. So the people have reposed their faith in this current government. And the current government in 2019, when they came back, they started with a bang. I have to tip my hat to the fact that they got 370 abrogated. They got the Ram Mandir judgment in their favor. They got the CAA passed. And then they just hit a road wall. This is their own self-inflicted wound. This is not somebody else telling them to do something. Whether it was the Shaheen Bagh riots, it should have been dealt with as a nuisance because they were holding up a national highway, or the riots that followed afterwards, or this persisting farmer agitation that still blocks roads coming into Delhi. So
I have,
the people have done their thing. Why is the government not doing its part?
I would say, Shri, average politician's skill has more to do with political management. And when that political leadership comes to this thing, it depends on institutional wisdom. What has happened? Institution has had rotten so much. There was so much of rot and such a deep rot. It was stinking so much that the institution did not have that kind of capacity to fulfill ambitions that Prime Minister Modi spelled out for India. These institutions did not have. Second, I would say that these organized crime networks, these vested interests, they had so much of at stake. They were such big benefits that they would never have allowed any government or anyone to, dismantle their covert empire, dismantle their subversive empire, dismantle their organized crime empire. They would have done everything and anything possible at their level to get around any political establishment, as I said, bending backward, forward, sideways, here and there. They had positioned their people because even when the mandate was given, they managed to sabotage, they managed to subvert, and they managed to win over because these forces, as I said, they have been so powerful, and they are not only outsiders. Many of them are hiding in the institutions. As I said, equally popular, some of them equally popular with previous government and this government. And once they are controlling institutions, there is absolutely no way of political leadership getting to know the truth. Thirdly, I would say, Sri, I do not agree with using far too much of coercion within your own territory. Within your own territory, some that even if you have to send someone to hell, send it in such a way the person must be excited to go on that journey. So here we don't send our people on hell, on a journey towards hell. I personally feel, that yes, 370 had to be scrapped, but it had to be done in a smarter. Even of course we have to destroy radicalism. We have not done much to destroy radical character of Pakistan. I'm not saying that you first destroy that. You simultaneously destroy that also and sanitize your own area also. I don't think there has been much of a strategic move in this direction. There has not been a much smarter move in this direction. On your channel, I said, that in Nagaland, when insurgency was at peak, at one point of time, people were saying, Naga insurgency is far more deadly than even Kashmir insurgency. Kashmir had a Pakistani backing. Nagas, good number of them, they had Chinese backing, but they had managed to hoodwink local people. But one incident happened in Jaffu Hotel of Nagaland, if I'm not mistaken, 98 or so, 98 end. All ex-MLAs, they had boycotted previous election, but then they came together. They said, no, we want to be with India. We want a greater integration with Indian this thing because all these underground fellows, they are looting this thing, they are disturbing people and all kinds of this. What I'm not saying that this was arranged by someone, but somehow it was certainly not arranged by, if somebody claims, intelligence bureau had arranged it, it's fraud. It has never happened. It's a different thing, some of our people, something happens, they go and claim credit. Oh, I did it. Something has happened. So that has been the character of, sections of this thing. This was absolutely indigenous, this thing, initiated by a local, this thing. I don't know, why did we not come out and persuade those people that, okay, you take initiative. Fact is that 90% plus Kashmiris, they never consider Pakistan as a viable option. Richard Bradnock's this thing I heard in London, in Chatham House many years back, and this thing said that less than 2% people, that also include districts of Valley. Even amongst them, a similar number of people in Pakistani Kashmir wanted to be with India, similar percentage of people. So what I'm saying, do these things, but do it in a smart way at a low cost where, there's minimum collateral damage. I say, if I have an option, I would never have equated Bangladesh with Pakistan because Sheikh Hasina has done wonderful things in Bangladesh. So this is why, geopolitics, geostrategy, national security is not a common man's this thing. You can't wear hat of a domestic politician and decide on these issues. This is why you need wisdom. You can't be a domestic policeman and thinking on these issues. You have to have a panoramic view. You have to do the same thing, do in a smarter way. Had Sheikh Hasina government not taken care of insurgents in Northeast or Islamic radicals, we would be having much bigger problem. But someone like her, we put her in the same category as Pakistan or Afghanistan. What? This is why you need tact. You don't need force every time, because if something is flowing in this direction, you use that flow. You will invest minimum amount of energy. Don't attack too many people. Pinpoint 1, 2, 4 people and do it. But at the same time, you should never treat, or rather consider, your own population as adversary. You should never. Every opponent is not your enemy. Some opponent is something. He may be a wise person saying something. You convert that opponent into your friend. Statecraft is very difficult. This rogue politicians and so-called this thing, they don't have wisdom of Hindu brain. Even many Muslims also, including Hyder Ali, they relied on wisdom of some this thing, Hindu brain, to carry out some good things. And those, I'm not saying, talking about Hindu means Hindu identity. 90% of the Muslim intelligentsia of India, they have read our ancient scriptures. They say those are not Hindu scriptures, those are ancient Indian scriptures, and these have some similarities. So what I'm trying to say, brain has to be used, ideas have to be used, and force must not be a substitute to a powerful idea. Unfortunately, from Mughal and colonial era, what we are noticing, that government or people in position of authority, they have an agenda. Most of the time they are using force, they are using intimidation, they are using coercion. I think intimidation and coercion should be used very sparingly, selectively, and yet effectively, not in the interest of individual interest of people, in the larger interest. Today we are democracy, Sri, not because of our colonial experience, as many people would like to say. We are democracy amidst all adversities because of our own ancient values. We had far stronger tradition of humanism and accountability of authority than even West, but we got subverted then. We decayed then, and because of that subversion, we met such a dangerous plight. But yet our freedom fighters, they fought, they brought a situation, they have brought it to a certain level. We have to carry it forward. And this is why I feel, whatever limited idea, this is not a planned discussion, this is a freewheeling discussion, but whatever limited ideas we can throw up and we can sensitize, I hope we can carry forward the idea of India, because a powerful, heterogeneous, smart and effective democracy in India will assure dignity and security to not only people in India, Sri. It will be very critical for security and dignity of people, I would say entire mankind, because this Chinese system, I have gone beyond what you've asked, but this is, I'm trying to explain. And that is why, the first and foremost priority has to be a strong national security strategy which is not coercive, a national security strategy which allows people to evolve, flourish, and contribute to grow themselves and yet contribute to society, Sri. That is the model which has to be created. It is not available on sale or in some mall somewhere that we just have to go and buy it. This has to be developed indigenously, and this has to be evolved, practiced, and put into practice, and continuously improved upon, continuously refined, Sri.
Thank you very much, Jitendra ji, and very interesting points that you brought out. The takeaway here is that people need to understand that, again, this goes back to what is your identity? What is your identity? You're a human being first. Then you are the citizen of a particular country. Then you are something else. You're a citizen of a particular state. Then you are the follower of a certain religion. You belong to a particular community. All those things come later. This priority needs to be kept in mind, especially for the political class. And I see that it is more broken than followed. At least we should be happy that the government at the center, right-minded people with the right thoughts. Modi ji has certainly tried a lot of things. He has succeeded in several, but is also work in progress in many other. But the problems just keep growing. I think the important takeaway here is people need to get involved. If you think that your MLA is doing something wrong, do protest. Send him 1,000 mails. If you want to give anonymous emails, create a Proton Mail account. Send it from the Proton Mail account. The point here is, look, you are doing something that is not national. You need to know, I've got my eyes on you. That kind of a check and balance is needed. I hope people will take up our suggestions. This is not sedition. This is not anything anti-national. All I'm trying to say is, if you can put a comment here, surely you can send an email to your local legislature if you're legislator. if you're not happy with something that it, because this needs to go at every level. It's not something like, oh, if I stop at this point, I'm happy. Please go ahead. You wanted to say something.
No, people, most of the ordinary people, Shri, they are struggling to, meet their daily needs, daily requirements. It is very difficult for them, to spend time and get into something like this. What I feel, people who are in position of authority, they should realize that safest thing for them, because they are in a much stronger position, is to live in a state or in a society which respects rule of law, which is based in probity and integrity. Because when integrity is missing, Shri, and systems are subverted, as we say, everybody will be under threat. So good that ordinary people have to be involved. But intelligent, educated people, they also have a moral obligation. But worst thing that we are noticing, that people after Ivy League education and bought this thing degree, they are representing illegal minors or money launderers and things like that. That is very disturbing. So this is what I would say. The force of leadership has to, transcend all these sectors, and we need a powerful national vision which should be livable, that everybody should be in a position to live. So there's a lot of work in progress, but thank you once again for spelling out these things and giving me this opportunity.
Yes, and before I sign off, I made one mistake. It is not Sitaram Kesari, it is Sitaram Yechuri. Thank you very much. Namaskar.